Radhe Radhe, Namaste all. Welcome to JK Yog's International Gita Festival. I am sure all of you are excited for the week-long Gita Festival from April 11 to April 17. Want to remind you all that the Har Ghar Gita initiative is still going on. Through this campaign, we aim to distribute the commentary of Sri Swamiji's Holy Bhagavad Gita to people around the globe. Each and every one of you can be part of this noble project and contribute using the link available in this portal. At this moment, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Madhu Reddy ji, who has agreed to match every Bhagavad Gita book donated during this International Gita Festival through Har Ghar Gita campaign. Yes, this is your chance to double your contribution to this lovely cause. So if you donate 50 books, then 100 books will be donated. So please generously contribute to spreading this divine wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. We will now move on to the much awaited Gita Insights of Everyday Living segment, in which Sri Swami Mukundananda ji will be shedding light on Bhagavad Gita. Swami Mukundananda ji is a global spiritual leader, authority on mind management, thought leader, Vedic scholar, and a Bhakti saint. He is the founder of the non-profit organization JK Yog and the author of numerous bestsellers. Swamiji graduated from the most prestigious institutes of the world, that is IIT and IIM. He is a senior disciple of Sri Jagadguru Sri Krupalaji Maharaj. Having received this priceless wisdom, Swamiji now travels the world spreading the message of divine love and selfless service to God. He presents the most esoteric knowledge in a logical, simple and soul-nourishing style. Our special guests for today's interaction are Devapriya Roy and her husband Saurav Jha. Devapriya Roy is an Indian author best known for her books Friends from College, Indira and the Heat and Dust Project. Saurav Jha is commentator on energy and security. His first book, The Upside Down Book of Nuclear Power, was translated in several Indian languages. Jha has written for publications such as Le Monde Diplomatique, World Politics Review, The Diplomat, as well as national dailies such as Deccan Herald, The Telegraph, and the Hindustan Times. Devapriya and Saurav The Heat and Dust Project chronicles the story of traveling through India on local buses on a very tight budget, which debuted at number 1 on the Hindustan Times AC Nielsen list and also got excellent reviews.
Thank you so much for the very warm introduction. Radhe Radhe Swamiji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Devapriya and Jai Jagannath to Saurav.
So Swamiji, it is wonderful to to do this, and we are very privileged that that this is happening. I will ask the first question. Swamiji, when did you encounter the Bhagavad Gita the very first time?
See, the first time I encountered it was through the verse Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That was a verse that we all learned even when we were in school. But the first time I started seriously reading the Gita was when I was in Calcutta doing my MBA. There was a friend of mine, and he was the one who gave it to me. And when I started reading it, I just fell completely in love with it.
Now we'll now get down to the business of the Gita itself. Although I hate to use a term like this. So See, the Gita is obviously at the core of Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma, right? It's absolutely at the core. Now, what according to you is the core of that core? What is the fundamental of the fundamental in the Gita?
Well, Saurav, you have very rightly said that the Gita is at the very core of our Sanatan Vedic Dharma. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandana. The Gita Mahatmya says that the Upanishads are like the cow, and Sri Krishna has milked that cow and presented it in the form of the Gita to Arjun. It is also called the fifth Veda. It is accorded the status of the Upanishads as Gita-Upanishad. This question is also often presented to me, Swamiji, what is that one verse you would like to choose, etc. It becomes a little difficult, but since you have asked, Sri Krishna's intention is to teach Arjun Karma Yoga. Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara Yudhyacha. Arjun, don't renounce your duties. Continue doing them in divine consciousness while keeping your mind attached to the Lord. So I would say that 1/4 of a verse forms the very core of the Gita.
Also, see, here he says that be steadfast in the performance of your duty, O Arjun, abandoning attachment to success and failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So, in this verse, he is essentially, the Lord is basically defining what yoga is, which is really the core of what we are talking about, isn't it? In the Gita.
See, this word yoga figures 150 times in the Gita, and he has defined it differently every time. So he says, samatvam yoga muchyate, yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye, yoga karmasu kaushalam. So he has given different aspects of the state of yoga, which is the state of union of our consciousness with the divine. So to be steadfast in the performance of duty is very right. But one part of it that needs to be added here is in divine consciousness.
Swamiji, one of the things that absolutely, makes this book remarkable is the way it's been arranged verse by verse, right? First, there is the Sanskrit original. After that, in Roman form, we have the sort of Romanized transliteration
IAST form.
Using diacritics. After that, you've actually divided the long Sanskrit compounds into their core elements, and to me, that's a really revolutionary step in this translation, because what it does is those who don't know Sanskrit but are familiar with an Indian language can still access the core vocabulary, because once it's broken down, we can all, whether through Bangla or Hindi or any of the Indo-Aryan languages, then we have the final translation in English.
Any of the former Prakrits.
Yeah. And after that, Swamiji, we have your commentary. And your sort of explication, elaboration is so wide-ranging. Somewhere Rahim Khani Khana pops in. Somewhere there's a, Tulsidas Goswamiji is there. There is a quote maybe from the Bible somewhere. It all comes together. So how deliberate was this sort of, the way you organized it?
Devapriya, having been in this line for decades and interacting with people, I saw that doesn't suffice to just say this is the translation of the verse. because people want to see it for themselves. They want to see that translation in the verse. And when they have the word meanings, they see, okay, yes, here's the root word. And because of the background in various Indian regional languages, a little bit of Sanskrit understanding people do have. And with the help of the meanings of the root words, they are able to connect. Yes, yes, yes. Sri Krishna is saying this here. And then now the translation comes. Okay, I may not have figured it out for myself, but when I see this here, it makes sense. So the faith comes. That credibility is very important while explaining scriptures to win the faith of the people that what is being presented is not just off the cuff or somebody's version, but it is the authentic explanation of the Gita. And then when it comes to explaining the verses, the priority I gave was for people to understand it. So the explanation should create an epiphany moment. Aha, yes, now it makes sense. That is the success of the purport after the translation. So that was my objective, wherever possible, to create the epiphany moment so that people say, yes, now this translation has sunk deep in. So with the help of logic, and sometimes to keep the interest or show its relevance, a few worldly examples or a few quotations. Look, other thinkers have said the same thing. So it makes the translation rustmine for the reader.
Yes, it is indeed very
It is, and it is extremely contemporary. It's a contemporary commentary. It's in the tradition of old commentaries, but updated to our day and age.
It speaks to our generation.
But since you talked about that epiphany moment, so I'm taking you to a moment where Arjun has not yet had an epiphany, despite the Lord himself, talking to him. So here is that part. So here Arjun says, it's Arjun Uvach. It says, Arjun said, the system of yoga that you have described, O Madhusudan, appears impractical and unattainable to me due to the restless mind. All right. So this is what Arjun says. Now, what I want to say is in today's day and age, given the rise of social media and the general, the rise of virtual living, it has become even more difficult now to train the mind.
Because we read that story about a sadhu who had, it's in the book, that, a sadhu who had been doing sadhana, ghor tapasya for 12 years
in the Himalayas.
And then he comes to the city during the Kumbh Mela and he goes...
For the viewers, this is a story given by Swamiji in his book. It's from the book itself, this anecdote.
And in the Kumbh Mela, in the crush of the crowd, somebody steps on his foot and he gets really angry. And then he immediately checks himself and says, 12 years of sadhana in the Himalayas, it took one day in the city for it to be. So what we feel...
So in this age of social media, where, there is either instant validation of whatever you have done, okay, or instant opprobrium for what you are doing, right? How do you keep the equanimity of how does one keep that sense of detachment and stay away from either desire? Because you see, desire can be fulfilled very readily also. If you have the desire for validation, that can be fulfilled, and if you want to stay away from anger, that too becomes difficult, because you will face insults very quickly also. So what is to be done? What can a devotee do in today's day and age to stay on the right path?
So, Saurabh, this verse that you have quoted, I think it comes in the 6th chapter, Dhyan Yoga, where Sri Krishna he's taking Arjun through the process of Dhyan. So you sit down like this and fix your mind, keep it steady. Then Arjun says that, oh, Sri Krishna, it is so difficult because the mind seems impossible to control. So the state of the mind is the same as it was 5,000 years ago. But the external environment has changed, as you have very rightly pointed out, that now the disturbances are all around. The availability of pleasures is so much easier. So in this situation, it does become challenging to control the mind. But look at it from another point of view. The opportunity to learn and master has become also far greater. So mastery or siddhi in spirituality doesn't mean that my mind is undisturbed because there are no challenges around. Siddhi means that I am in the midst of the most turbulent circumstances, and yet I can keep my mind under control. So, if we wish to reach the apex of this journey, we will have to pass these tests. Now, in the modern scenario, the tests have become so profuse. So, the challenge is greater. But at the same time, it is not something that was not to be expected in the pathway to spiritual ascendancy. Only thing, it has come right in front of our face. So, as far as possible, we should avoid the environment that disturbs us, which means we should connect with social media and the television and video games, etc., only as much as necessary. As somebody put it very well, that look, if there is a fight between the environment and your willpower, the chances are that your willpower is going to lose. So it's better to keep them out, but at the same time, you keep on building your inner strength. And what is that building of the inner strength? The mind wants pleasure, and its accomplices are the senses. So the senses themselves don't experience pleasure. It is the mind that does so with the help of the senses. Rasgulla, so much of pleasure. So the real weakness out here is not in the objects of the senses, it is in the uncontrolled mind. When we can learn to subdue that pleasure seeking nature of the mind, when we can learn to master the mind and subjugate it to our higher purpose, our higher values, we then have the inner strength to face the, the temptations, the challenges, etc., that the environment presents before us. So the focus should be on strengthening ourselves spiritually by learning to control the mind with the help of the intellect.
Swamiji, there's one verse which I was very moved by, and I was also very sort of happy to find, since I had never immersed myself in the Bhagavad Gita before this in this way. I was hoping that you would, shed some light on this. This is from the Yoga of Renunciation, chapter 5. And this is the verse on equality, Swamiji. I'm just reading the English translation. The truly learned, with the eyes of divine knowledge, see with equal vision a Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. And, and today when there is so much, talk about equality and those who have felt excluded in the past, around the world, so many groups who are, standing up for their voices and so on. Even in India, we know that we've had a lot of pain that has been that people have felt because of caste discrimination. So this verse, I would like you to shed some light on it.
Yes, Devapriya, the unfortunate reality of human history is the varieties of discrimination that have existed in all cultures around the world, including India. So India has also had its share of crimes in this regard. And Sri Krishna has presented the ultimate verse of inclusion when he says,
Yes.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Pandita Samadarshina. Arjun, the sage, with the help of situated in knowledge, sees with equal vision. Brahmane, uh, Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. What is the basis of this? Knowledge gives us the understanding that we are all souls. Atmavat sarva bhuteshu yah pashyati sa panditah. A pandit, someone who's truly learned, is one who sees Atmavat, the others as the self. Just like I am the soul and a little part of God, similarly, others are also souls and little parts of God. So we are all brothers and sisters. We are all children of the same God. This is the test of knowledge, that we are able to see everybody equally. In fact, in the Mahabharata, there's a very interesting story. It is of Utang Rishi. So Utang Rishi, after the Mahabharata was over, and he was somehow excluded from the events. But later on, he came to know the Mahabharata had happened in the presence of Sri Krishna. And he said, how did Sri Krishna allow the Mahabharata to happen? I will curse him for it. So Sri Krishna manifested before Utang Rishi and said, you are a venerable sage, but your intellect has got a doubt. So Utang said, Maharaj, how did you allow the Mahabharata to happen? Sri Krishna explained there were reasons for it, the Leela of God. So he said, finally, he was convinced. And Sri Krishna said, Utang, ask for a boon. So Utang said that I live in the desert and I'm a renunciant. So whenever I have need for water, it should be made available to me. Sri Krishna said, so be it. Now, some time went by and Utang was desperate. His tongue had become like leather, and he cried out that Sri Krishna had given the commitment, and a Shudra came. And he said, here is some water. So Utang refused. How can I take from a Shudra? And then Sri Krishna came. Utang said, Maharaj, you did not keep your word. Sri Krishna said, I came in the form of the Shudra. You declined. Utang said, I'm so sorry. I fell short in my realization. The Sri Krishna there again was teaching this lesson, that true knowledge gives us the vision to see everyone as tiny parts of God.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, it's my turn. Right, so let us. So here Sri Krishna says, the Lord says, this is from the infinite opulence of God, infinite opulences of God. I am just punishment amongst means of preventing lawlessness and proper conduct amongst those who seek victory. Amongst secrets I am silence, and in the wise I am their wisdom. So I would highlight one part of this verse, which is and proper conduct amongst those who seek victory. right? So the Lord emphasizes this over here. So in a sense that, we have heard this through time, and growing up also in pious households, we hear that what a fallen one can get away with, somebody who aspires to attainment cannot. A spiritual attainment, I mean. Somebody who desires, again, desire is something that the Lord doesn't want us to have, but somebody who wants an actual victory and not just an untainted victory, for him or her, the standards will be far higher. They will be judged by a different standard, by the law of karma. What would you say to this, Swamiji, to this part?
So, Saurav, this is, I think you have brought out an important point, that does the end justify the means? Because if victory is the end, and then are we justified to do anything to achieve it? So Sri Krishna is saying that they follow just behavior. Now, real victory is not an external one. The work we do, our profession, our occupation, is only a means for achieving our own elevation and salvation. And if we succeed in work but fail as human beings, we have failed in the eyes of God, and we have suffered the loss, the downfall of our soul. That is why somebody who has the priorities right in life decides that inner integrity is far more important than external victory, because it is not for the world to judge whether we are victorious or failures. It is God's decision, his evaluation, which is most important. As the Bible says, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? So Sri Krishna is saying that virtue in human beings, being just in victory, is coming from me.
Because people have a tendency to do anything and everything to either preserve what they hold dear, or to secure what they hold as the ultimate. So in that sense, it is very easy to meander on the way to getting there. And like you said,
That's very right.
even if you
You
get
know,
there, yes, please go ahead, Swamiji.
yeah, Saurav, you are writers. You must probably be remembering a Voltaire statement that there is no crime worse than war, and there is no avenger, I forget the words, who does not justify it, their crime of war, as being necessary for a higher purpose. So, in fact, in the name of religion itself, the maximum wars in history have been fought in the name of religion. While no religion teaches violence, and yet the maximum wars in history have been in the name of religion. So, this is exactly the case of people justifying their personal agenda
Well,
and employing any means, fair or foul, to achieve it.
but that is what Bhagwan Krishna says here in the Gita, that
Huh.
it is not you who will uphold me, but it is I who will uphold you. It is, all these wars, especially the religious ones, they are fought in the name of upholding the name of God on earth with your own brothers on earth, that is. Whereas, as in this case, the entire Gita, we find the Lord saying that it is not for you to decide that. It is I who decide that, and you be an instrument for my purpose. But how does
Yes.
one, so this brings us to that other question. How does one who may have good intentions, although no road was paved with good intentions, so to speak, but How does one who has good intentions keep himself or herself on that straight and narrow path? Suppose, and I'm especially talking about somebody who's highly driven, who maybe wants the betterment of humanity, but is unable to comprehend what is to be done. What would you say to them?
Straight and narrow path. Yes. So, Saurav, it's like this, that we have in India so many government officials, and as the experience is that a large portion of them are not exactly honest. So it is the stuff that's given on the under the table that enables them to do their work. But then there is a segment of them who are honest as well. And you tell them, please do my work. I'll give you 1 lakh. They say no. 10 lakh, no. 1 crore, all right, keep it. It'll be done. So you are able to buy them over at a certain value. Now, that is the narrow path. That where is the limit? Swami Ram Tirth, he was probably the second Swamiji to go to US after Swami Vivekananda. And when he met the president asked him, what is so special about India? He said, India is a land where you'll find people who cannot be purchased with money. They cannot, no matter how much you give, they will not be purchased. So how do we reach that level, of integrity? It all depends on our beliefs, the beliefs that we hold within us. Now, it's a question of values. We have valued integrity over everything else. But the basis of values is belief. If our belief system tells us that this is the most important thing in life, then automatically our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors will align with it. The people who throw values, away, the reason is that they feel that happiness lies in the externals. And people who uphold their integrity have come to the conclusion that real happiness comes from the inner victories. Real happiness comes from aligning ourselves with the pleasure of God. And that is why they are not willing to sacrifice that consent of God for the sake of small trinkets in the world. So if we can reinforce our belief system, that keeps our life on that small, narrow track. And for the reinforcement, there's nothing better than divine wisdom. So the Bhagavad Gita is giving us that divine wisdom. If we can drink it, we can assimilate it, we can internalize it, it will help us create the auspicious, beneficial beliefs which will set our life in the most pious and noble direction.
My turn.
Yes.
Swamiji, I'm coming to to perhaps the verse which everyone in India knows, Karmanye Vadhikarasthi.
Well, read out the second line also.
Yeah, no, the Swamiji will read out the original. I don't want to mangle it.
Okay.
But Swamiji, especially because when B.R. Chopra's Mahabharat used to come in, I think in the late 80s on television, it used to begin with this
Early
verse,
90s.
early 90s, this verse in Amitabh Bachchan's baritone, and so everyone knew it. But it's so important that I'll read the translation, Swamiji. You will say the original. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to inaction. Um, I'm very tempted, since we have you. Will you speak about this verse, Swamiji?
Okay, Devapriya, karmannevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sangostu karmani. Now, in this verse, Sri Krishna we can break down this verse into 4 parts. So, Sri Krishna is first of all saying that Arjun, you do your duty. He is not giving Arjun a retirement plan. He is motivating Arjun in the direction of continuing with his responsibilities. But the most important part here is, he says, Ma phaleshu, do not be attached to the results. So, what is wrong with attachment to the results? Thousands upon thousands of people have given their interpretations of this verse, but we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, let me give you a little deeper perspective to it. The fact that we are attached to results indicates that our intention is impure. We are doing the work for our sake, for our pleasure, for our aggrandizement. That is material consciousness. And spiritual consciousness is, I'm doing it for the pleasure and glory of God. So the fruits are for His enjoyment. And when they are offered to Him in love, then I am not attached to the outcomes. But that is the kind of purity of intention which naturally gets developed as a consequence of implementing this verse. And then he says, Ma karma phala hetul. Another deep philosophical part here. Don't think you are the doer. They say, do and don't think you are the doer. But we all see that we are the ones who are doing. I am speaking, you're listening, you speak, I listen. How can we say I am not the doer? So the philosophy behind it is that our body is insentient. Just like anything, these glasses are insentient. So the body is insentient. It receives power from God, which then enables it to work. And the soul, as the passenger in the body, has the ability to direct the body. Look at this, don't look at this. Think this, don't think that. So because the soul is in the driver's position, it gets caught in the karmas that the body and mind perform. Because ultimately it is giving the instructions. But it must slowly learn to see itself as the non-doer, that the energy is coming from the Lord Himself. And Mate Sangostva Karmani, Arjun, don't be attached to inaction. Don't become lazy. You need to do.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Swamiji, an allied question that I have with this, there are those verses which now I can't find, even though I put a post-it. I think later on, where Sri Krishna is saying that Arjun, it is ideal to do the action situated in me. But if you cannot do it, then you do the action and offer it to me. If you can't do even that, then you do the action, but don't think about the fruits of the action. And I really like this very much, because once again,
Yes.
this, if you walk us through it, that'll be much better.
There are entire verses which give prescriptions about how to turn action into inaction, as in you do the karma, but the karma doesn't stick with you. And according to the Lord, the easiest path is if everything is an offering, if you do it as a result of devotion to Him.
But why I
Yes.
really like these set of verses is that it also includes those who may not be be situated in divinity in quite the same way.
Yeah, Lord
Even for
Krishna
them,
says, don't read the Gita to them. In one of the verses, he says that those who are not drawn to divinity do not read the Gita to them, really.
you read it too closely. Now,
No,
now
but Saurav, I think Devapriya's point is that there are gradations of divinity. So there are gradations of aspirants, right? So I think this comes in chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, where Sri
Yeah.
Krishna says, "You sit and think of me always." But then, oh Sri Krishna, I can't do that. Now what? So Sri Krishna says, okay, here is the next alternative then. You serve me, work for me. That means that, okay, now I'm going to the temple, I'm cleaning the temple, I'm worshiping the deities, so I'm directly working for the Lord. But then, not everybody has that option. People have got a 9 to 5 job. So, how can they work all day long for Sri Krishna? So, he says, in that case, whatever you do, you take the fruits of it and you offer them to me. So, for example, we are working to earn a salary, and after meeting our basic needs, whatever we can save, we offer it in the service of Sri Krishna. Oh, Sri Krishna, here are the fruits. And what happens is we start developing the consciousness of Karma Yoga. This 9 to 5 job is for the pleasure of Sri Krishna. Let me work hard for a raise so I'll be able to serve him more. But then there may be people who don't have that love for God, who don't have that connection with him. So many people say, I'm agnostic, I'm an atheist. Many people, they read some of my books and they say, it's not for me. There's too much of God in this book. So Sri Krishna says, okay, Arjun, suppose you are one of those. Because ultimately, through Arjun, he's speaking to all of us. So he says, suppose you don't have that connection with God, then just practice detachment from the results, because it will start purifying your mind. It will bring you from tamagun to rajagun to sat.
And coming back to the issue of the body being a mere vessel or a machine, right, for the true inhabitant. So Lord
Yes.
Krishna himself says that it is a yantra towards the end of the Gita. He says it's a yantra. So here I have a slightly allied question, which is not doesn't deal directly with the book. Do you think that the hatha yoga that we do, where we essentially where we use the body as a yantra basically, again let us keep aside the scientificity of these arguments, modern rationalist arguments, let them keep them aside. Do you think the hatha yoga was also developed as an offering to the Lord? Do you think that was the idea behind it ultimately? Or was it merely to prepare yourself for, the eightfold path with higher meditative practices coming at the end?
Yes, yes. Saurav, there are such a variety of spiritual aspirants that they all connect with different kinds of spiritual practices. So there are those who connect with just pure love, pure devotion. Others want intellectual analysis. Others, they wish to work in service. And there are some who just love that mechanical aspect. So Hatha Yoga, it serves both the purposes. It does prepare the body for the higher stages, which is Dharan, Dhyan, and Samadhi. Maharshi Patanjali explains. But at the same time, Maharshi Patanjali again and again says, Ishvara Pranidhanat, Samadhi Siddhir Ishvara Pranidhanat, that you will need to add devotion to Hatha Yoga. Without devotion, you will not get grace. And without grace, this Maya will not go. The complete control over the mind will not come. Sage Tulsidas has put it so strongly. He says, Yoga Kuyoga Jnana Agyanu Jaha Nahi Ram Prem Paradhanu. That yoga is kuyog, which doesn't have love for God. So all the teachers of Hatha Yoga have actually included bhakti in it. They do this also as an offering to the Lord.
So Swamiji, without having an element of bhakti in Hatha Yoga, there is a possibility that, again, let's keep aside all talk of modern scientificity and all that. There is a possibility that a person might actually regress towards atheism, is it not? If there is no element of devotion in the practice, if it is purely a physical practice.
Yes, there are such cases sometimes. People who are practicing bhakti, they came to a teacher of Hatha Yoga who had incomplete knowledge. So that teacher of Hatha Yoga took them along an atheistic path where there was no mention of God. There are such rare cases, but the reverse is also true, that people just came looking for mechanical practices. And then the teacher showed them that the culmination of this is in union with the Supreme. So that second instances are far more common. That's what we see is happening in the West. That people, they say, oh, I want to practice yoga. And then they go deeper and deeper. What does Patanjali say? And then they come to spirituality and they get connected. They find the real treasure there.
Swamiji, I have a request now. One of my favorite things in this book was your invocation. And invocation, which is also a sort of dedication.
And there is a very interesting aspect to this invocation, which also we shall highlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that you would recite the invocation and also tell us the meaning.
And also answer a difficult question, which I am sure you will be able to.
God.
Come on, we have to ask a few difficult questions here.
No question is difficult for Swamiji.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't remember what is the invocation, but I'll take my take on it. Because at different
in Sanskrit, original Sanskrit, Swamiji, isn't it?
See, I use a varieties of invocations in different places. So which one I've used here, but I'll tell you with 99% reliability, this is the one I've used. Ajnanitimirandhasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha Mukundananda praponnoham guru padaravindayo tasya preranaya tasya divyadesham vadamyaham. So I am saying that I offer my respectful obeisances to my Guru, who with the torchlight of knowledge has dispelled the darkness of ignorance within me. And surrendering myself to my Guru, on his instructions, I am going to propound on topics of divine wisdom.
Swamiji, this is the other invocation where you say Prathamam Sadgurum Vande Shri Krishna Tadanantaram. That one.
But I offer my...
Yes, so Prathamam Sadgurum Vande Shri Krishnam Tadanantaram Guru Papatmanam Trata Shri Krishna Swamalatmanam. Yes, this is also an invocation that I use very often. I first offer my obeisance to my Guru and then to Shri Krishna. Because Shri Krishna accepts the purified souls. But my Guru is so merciful that he even accepts fallen souls like myself. So this is also in the lines of what Kabirji said. When Kabirji got darshan of the Lord, so he had Guru and God both in front of him. He says, Guru Govinda do khare kake lagu paya Balihari Guru apane Govinda diyo milaya. He says God and Guru are in front of me, Whom should I offer my respects to? To both of them? Yes, but whom should it be first? Do it to God, he is bigger? No, I'll do it to Guru, because the Guru has facilitated my meeting with God. So my gratitude is to the Guru.
Swamiji, I think you have certainly passed the test. But for introducing this levity, I am going to suffer 1 million more births.
Swamiji, one of the other things that one of the other verses, and it comes again and again, and I think which makes this book also, of course, you've made it very, very accessible, but the other thing of beauty, a little bit of levity. I'm also, being influenced by people like this.
Kusangati, basically.
Yes, exactly.
It's Kusangati working over here.
That, the sakhya between the Lord and Arjun. And at one point, he says also that you are both my bhakt, but you are also my sakha. And do you want to, talk a little bit about this?
On God as a friend, that part.
Yes. See, our relationship with God is comprehensive. So that is the beauty of that divine relationship. It doesn't need to be of just one kind. Sri Krishna is the Guru. He's also God. He's also Arjun's Sakha. And there are also stories when Arjun wanted to relish Braj Ras, he became a gopi and he went to relish that as well. So in the spiritual realm, more sabahi ekatum Swami. You see the Lord as your everything. Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Now in the world, it doesn't happen. You cannot say, okay, you are, if a lady says that you are my child and you're also my father and you're also my beloved, people say you're crazy. But in the spiritual realm, Radhaji is telling Krishna, Hanatha Ramana Preshtha Kwasi Kwasi Mahabhuja Dasyaste Kripanaya Me Sakhe Darshaya Sannidhim. O Nath, O Raman, O Presht, O Sakhe, where are you? This Dasi of yours is longing. Please come and give darshan, O Mahabhuj. So, in spirituality, if we only stay in this sentiment, he is God and I am the soul, we will experience Aishwarya Ras, the bliss of opulence in bhakti, the almighty aspect of God. But there are sweeter relationships with God where the almightiness gets finished. Now he comes to the level of the devotee. So the devotee says, okay, we are on equal terms. Come on, let me put my arm around your shoulder and walk as your sakha, as your buddy. And that relationship is sweeter for both the devotee and God. That is why there's a Leela in the Vrindavan. Sri Krishna was having the Basantotsav with the gopis and he suddenly disappeared from their midst. And they started looking for him here and there, etc. And just to tease them, he manifested in his four-armed form. And what will they do when they see Bhagavan? So they said, this is Bhagavan out here. We are not interested. We are interested in Krishna. So they rejected Bhagavan. So one Lalita Sakhi said, look, Bhagavan gives a boon. Why don't you ask him for a boon? So they all went and asked, oh Bhagavanji, please give us this boon that we'll meet Sri Krishna. So that four-armed form is also the Lord, but it has got the almightiness attached to it. And those relishers of the ras of Rasik Bhakti, they say, no, we just want to see you as our friend, as our beloved, or even as our child.
Yeah. So that brings us to that point where if the devotee or the disciple teases the guru or the Lord, right? Nothing will obviously happen to the latter, the guru or the Lord. But what happens when the guru or the Lord decides to reciprocate and tease the devotee? And then thinking of the Lord as your friend doesn't seem like such a good idea anymore, doesn't it?
Oh, you see, the Lord also wants to relish the ras of being the devotee. And you see that in the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he would take the lowest seat and he would hanker for the dust of the feet of his devotees. He would hanker for the remnants of their prasads. So he would, actually Sri Krishna himself says that I walk behind my devotee. That when will this devotee's foot dust fly off and fall on me? So just like we want to relish that ras, God also wants to do it. Of course, your point is that that becomes very embarrassing for the devotee, so it does. But those are divine leelas. And sometimes God makes even the devotee forget that the devotee is interacting with God. So at that time, then both Bhakt and Bhagavan forget their original personality. And then the leela starts unfolding.
Swamiji, this has been, I have no words to describe what this has been for the two of us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for indulging us. Also for this, for our audience, I want to hold up the book, and I want to tell everyone that don't be afraid of its size, because as you could tell, Swamiji makes it very, very rasamay. It's each verse becomes like a rasgulla.
In fact, don't be afraid of this at all. I would go a step further. Even if you don't read anything in life, but just read this book, I think it'll be enough. Even if you imbibe even 1% of what is there, you will become dearer to Lord Krishna, and that is everything as we know. So, I would just
Also,
say,
thank you, Swamiji, for really for writing it for my generation. For I think about my students, younger generations. The way it's been, that your commentary, it really makes it come alive.
Exactly. It's only if you are an chosen instrument of the Lord that you will write a book like this in the first place. And that is, I think that says everything, because that goes to the core of what we were discussing today anyway, that we are all vessels and we are neither cause nor effect. So we can only thank you, Swamiji, for indulging us
with so much affection.
Well, Saurav and Devapriya, I do appreciate your heartfelt praise for the commentary. Of course, it's no credit to me. I was a little humble instrument in this whole thing. It was the grace of the Lord and my guru that worked to get this done. But so happy that it is inspiring people and enlightening them. And I'd like to express my thanks to both of you for such an informal and intimate and heart-to-heart talk on the Bhagavad Gita.
It was our privilege.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Jai Jagannath.